Voters say they think they'd be in better financial shape under former President Trump than Vice President Harris. A new Financial Times University of Michigan Ross poll finds 42% of voters think that they'd be better off financially if he wins in November. 33% think they'd do better under Harris. Meanwhile, a New York Times Santa College poll finds Harris tops Trump by 4 points in 3 battleground states: Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. And then a YouGov Blue survey finds that Trump and Harris are tied in North Carolina, a state that Trump carried in both 2016 and 2020. I want to bring in now our election debate panel: Democratic consultant and former House Judiciary Committee Chief Counsel Julian Epstein, and former Georgia Congressman and former Judiciary Committee ranking member Doug Collins. Doug, I want to start with you and add one more layer to this, layer cake that I'm creating here with all these polls, in that over the weekend, a lot of talk about former President Trump going after Brian Kemp, governor of Georgia, who was very popular in your state. What is going on in Georgia in particular right now?
Well, make no mistake. I mean, that's been something that there have been issues that Governor Kemp and President Trump have had. But there's no mistaking one thing. Both Governor Kemp and President Trump have made it very clear that Vice President Harris does not need to win Georgia, and they're both going to do everything they possibly can. So, look, Democrats may want to make something of it. Media wants to make something of it. But the bottom line here, I'm with grassroots voters all the time. It's time for us to win Georgia, and I think that's what both men are committed to do.
Okay. Julian, what do you make of these new numbers? It shows an interesting dynamic, in particular with the Financial Times Michigan Ross poll, because these voters are saying, and it is a Democrat group that put the poll together, but basically they're saying, well, I think I'd be in a better financial position with Trump, but, by a slim margin, they say, but I trust her with an economic future. What does that mean to you? It's a question mark.
Well, I pulled the lens back a little bit, Cheryl. You remember the gag about the Seinfeld show, the show about nothing. What Democrats want this campaign to be is a campaign about nothing, at least not the issues, because when it gets to the issues, Democrats lose by a margin of about 2 to 1. Americans think that the Biden-Harris administration has largely been a failure. So they would much rather this be a campaign about personalities in the age of TikTok memes, because Kamala Harris has youthful charm compared to Donald Trump. And I think the foolishness of what Trump is doing, and the reason that you're seeing movement in the polls, is he's playing into that by acting as the insult comedian and sort of getting into Harris is not really black and going after the governor of Georgia, to your earlier question to Doug. And he's playing into the Democrat strategy, which is basically a campaign of personalities. If they would prosecute the campaign on the issues, to your point, the American people really feel like this economy has failed, and most of the social issues, immigration, crime, have been a failure under the Democrats as well. And that's the game that the Republicans are missing right now.
Yeah, well, and to your point, actually, what's interesting about, and I think Doug brought this up initially, is that the editorial board at the Washington Post writes, Ms. Harris can't afford a basement campaign. You got to start taking questions, even if they're going to be hostile. You got to get out in front of the press. It's not going to work. What worked for Joe Biden in 2020 isn't going to work now. And she's also under fire from critics for copying Donald Trump's no tax on tips proposal. He's been saying that for over 2 months. She echoed the idea during a Vegas rally just this weekend. Doug, watch.
Raise the minimum wage and eliminate taxes on tips for service and hospitality workers.
When I get to office, we are going to not charge taxes on tips. There will be no taxes on tips. No taxes on tips. It's called no tax on tips. No tax on tips. No tax on tips. I'm also doing no tax on tips. No tax on tips.
Okay, got it. So Trump posted on Truth Social that Harris, quote, just copied my no tax on tips policy. Difference is she's not going to do it. She just wants it for political purposes. Trump idea, she has no idea. She can only steal from me. All right, Julian, real quick, what do you make of that? Of her kind of picking up this was a Trump idea. Let's be honest here.
It's my point about the Democrats don't want this to be a campaign of ideas or issues because they lose on that campaign. The same people who memory hold Joe Biden's infirmity are now trying to memory hole Kamala Harris's previous fringe left positions and her sort of soliloquies to nowhere, unburdened by what has been. And that is unsustainable for the Democrats. She's going to have to go out and do tough interviews, to your earlier question, with the media. She's going to have to sort of face the music on that, because otherwise the news media are going to start to look a little bit too Bolshevik here. They're sort of going along and promoting one candidate over the other. And that's just not going to be sustainable over time. She's going to have to get out there and face the tough questions.
Well, Doug, I do want to show you this morning's New York Post cover, because these questions are being covered by some media about the flip-flopping. Look at the New York Post, and it basically has a new name for her, and it's not even the copycat. It's Comma Chameleon. So if we have that to pull up, there it is, Comma Chameleon. Now everybody can sing the Culture Club song for the rest of the morning. You're welcome. Doug, but your reaction?
Look, it's sort of scary that Julie and I are actually agreeing so much this morning. But we are. Look, she is taking credit for every bad idea that's come out on the economy, immigration, foreign policy, everything out of the Biden administration. And they can't hide that. 21 days, 22 plus days and counting. Even the media, even her fawning media over the honeymoon period the last few weeks are starting to say, wait, you're going to have to answer these questions. And I agree completely. Here's what the issues are. And they're going to come into real focus after the Democrat convention, because you still got a problem with your Vice President Walz over there and issues that he's brought to the ticket. And then after this convention, it's going to get down to what are you going to do? And I think people are going to have to decide, do you want more of 3.5 years? Do you want more open border, a bad economy that we cannot find jobs and everything's 20-25% higher, gas is higher? Or do we want a chance to actually have something better that we had under Donald Trump? And then there's the missing piece, and that is the piece that Vice President Harris lied to the American people, lied to the American press about the condition of Joe Biden. And I think that's a concern that's going to come up more and more. But when you look at all the problems of the Biden administration and Harris administration that we've seen, and then you top onto that the insincerity of the vice president in dealing with Joe Biden. People are going to see this, and I think this is where it's right. She can't hide in the basement forever. Even her media that right now are propping her up are going to start asking questions, and she's going to have to answer. Teleprompters are her new glasses. She can't live without them.
Yeah, Julian?
Well, look, I mean, in the next couple of days, the world's the greatest threat to global peace right now is Iran. They are the Nazis of the Middle East, the KKK of the Middle East. I think she's going to have to answer questions as to how do you disarm such a maniacal regime, and simply calling for a ceasefire in Gaza sort of it doesn't really cut it. This is not about a piece of land in the Middle East. This is about an imperialist venture by Iran. And the Biden administration, I'm sorry to say, has really not addressed the Iran question very effectively. And this is going to be front and center this week. And this is something, the reason that it's so important for her to get in front of the media is because people want to see how she will deal with a complex and changing issues when she doesn't have a teleprompter in front of her. So this is something that she really needs to be able to answer in real time if she wants to knock the old rap on her, which is she's an empty suit.
All right. Doug, before you go, permission to redirect my question. The Wall Street Journal reports that Trump's attacks on Georgia's governor, Brian Kemp, is going to benefit Harris. I mean, you're a former congressman there. This is home to you. Does this put Georgia in play, Doug?
No, I don't think this story puts Georgia any more in play than Vice President Harris, kicking Joe Biden out of the presidency to run now. I think it brings back into play constituency groups that were going to come back who were tired of Biden, who were tired of the Democratic ticket. Look, again, this is something that's been going on in Georgia for a while. Everybody else seems to have just discovered it. It's not, but it's also something in which both men have talked about this week, is saying their main commitment is beating Harris in the fall. Look, Georgia is going to be tight. You and I have talked about this for over a year. I've always thought it's going to be tight, but also think Donald Trump's going to win by several points.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of states in play, 7 to be exact. Julian, Doug, gentlemen, thank you so much. Great to see you on a Monday.
Thanks, Cheryl.
All right, take care.